Welcome to today's reading from the Krishna book. We're reading the chapter Krishna the Ranchod. Lord Krishna then desired to know about the rulers, Kshatriyas in the Brahmana kingdom, so he inquired whether the citizens of the kingdom were all happy. A king's qualification is judged by the temperament of the people in the kingdom. If they are happy in all respects, it is to be understood that the king is honest and is executing his duties right. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Krishna said that the king in whose kingdom the citizens are happy is very dear to him. Of course, Krishna could understand that the Brahmana had come with the confidential message. Therefore he said, "If you have no objection, I give you liberty to speak about your mission." Thus, being very much satisfied by these transcendental pastimes with the Lord, the Brahmana narrated the whole story of his mission in coming to see Krishna. He got out the letter Rukmini had written to Krishna and said, "These are the words of Princess Rukmini. My dear Krishna, O infallible and most beautiful one, any human being who happens to hear about your transcendental form and pastimes immediately absorbs through his ears your name, fame, and qualities. Thus all his material pangs subside and he fixes your form in his heart. Through such transcendental love for you, he always sees you within himself, and by this process all his desires are fulfilled. Similarly, I have heard of your transcendental qualities. I may be shameless in expressing myself directly, but you have captivated me and taken my heart. You may doubt my steadiness of character, since how could an unmarried young girl like me approach you without any shame? But my dear Mukunda, you are the supreme lion among all the human beings, the supreme person among persons. Any girl, though not yet having left her home, or even any woman of highest chastity, would desire to marry you, being captivated by your unprecedented character, knowledge, opulence, and position. I know that you are the husband of the goddess of the fortune and are very kind toward your devotees. Therefore, I have decided to become your eternal maidservant. My dear Lord, I dedicate my life and soul unto your lotus feet. I have selected your lordship as my husband, and I therefore request you to accept me as your wife. You are the supreme powerful, O Lotus Eye One. Now I belong to you. If that which is enjoyable for the lion to eat is taken away by the jackal, it can be a ludicrous affair. Therefore, I request you to immediately take care of me before I am taken away by Shishupal, another princess like him. My dear Lord, in my previous life, I may have done public welfare work like digging wells and planting trees, or pious activities such as performing ritualistic ceremonies and sacrifices and serving superiors like the spiritual master, Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. By these activities, perhaps I have pleased the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan. If this be so, then I wish that you, Lord Krishna, the brother of Lord Balram, please come here and catch hold of my hand so that I shall not be touched by Shishupal and his company." Rukmini's marriage with Shishupal was already settled, therefore she suggested that Krishna kidnapped her so that this might be changed. This sort of marriage in which the girl is kidnapped by force is known as Rakshas and is practiced among Kshatriyas or men with an administrative martial spirit. Because her marriage was already arranged to take place in the next day, Rukmini suggested that Krishna come there incognito to kidnap her and then fight with Shishupal and his allies like the king of Magadh. Knowing that no one could conquer Krishna, who would certainly emerge victorious, she addressed him as Ajita, the unconquerable Lord. Rukmini told Krishna not to be concerned that the fighting would take place within the palace and that many of her family members, including other women, might thus be wounded or even killed. As the king of a country thinks of diplomatic ways to achieve his object, Rukmini, among being the daughter of a king, was diplomatic in suggesting how this unnecessary and undesirable killing could be avoided. She explained that it was the custom of her family to visit the temple of goddess Durga, their family deity, before a marriage. The Kshatriya kings were very much staunch Vaishnavas, worshipping Lord Vishnu in either the Radha Krishna or Lakshmi Narayan form. Still, for their material welfare, they used to worship goddess Durga. They never made the mistake, however, of accepting the demigods as the supreme lord on the level of Vishnu Tattva, as do some less intelligent men. To avoid the unnecessary killing of her relatives, Rukmini suggested that it would be easiest for him to kidnap her while she was either going from the place to the temple or else returning home. She also explained to Krishna why she was anxious to marry him, even though her marriage was to take place with Shishupal, who was also qualified, being the son of a great king. Rukmini said that she did not think anyone was greater than Krishna, not even Lord Shiva, who is also known as Mahadev, the greatest of all demigods. Lord Shiva also seeks the pleasure of Lord Krishna in order to be delivered from his entanglement in the quality of ignorance within the material world. Although Lord Shiva is the greatest of all the great souls, Mahatmas, he keeps on his head the purifying water of the Ganges, which emanates from a hole in this material universe made by the toe of Lord Vishnu. Lord Shiva is in charge of the material quality of ignorance, and to keep himself in transcendental position, he always meditates on Lord Vishnu or Krishna, and always tries to purify himself with the water of the Ganges. Therefore, Rukmini knew very well that obtaining the favor of Krishna was not easy, since even Lord Shiva must purify himself for this purpose. Surely it would be difficult for Rukmini, who was the only daughter of a Kshatriya king. Thus she desired to dedicate her life to observing the severe austerities and penances, such as fasting and going without bodily comforts. If it were not possible in this lifetime to gain Krishna's favor by these activities, she was prepared to die from such austerities and to undergo similar difficulties lifetime after lifetime. In the Bhagavad Gita it is said that the pure devotees of Lord execute the devotional service with great determination. Such determination is exhibited by Rukmini Devi. Is the only price for purchasing the Krishna's favor. One should be strongly determined in Krishna consciousness, and that is the way to ultimate success. After relaying Rukmini Devi's statement to Krishna, the Brahmana said, "My dear Krishna, chief of the Yadu dynasty, I have brought this confidential message for you from Rukmini. Now it is placed before you for your consideration. After due deliberation, you may act as you please. But if you want to do something, you must do immediately. There is not much time left for action." Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 52nd chapter of Krishna, Krishna the Ranchod. Chapter 53, Krishna kidnaps Rukmini. After hearing Rukmini's statement, Lord Krishna was very pleased. He immediately shook hands with Brahmana and said, "My dear Brahmana, I am very glad to hear Rukmini is eager to marry me, since I am also eager to get her hand. My mind is always absorbed in the thoughts of the daughter of the Bhishmaka, and sometimes I cannot sleep at night because I am thinking of her. I can understand that the marriage of Rukmini and Shishupal has been arranged by her elder brother in a spirit of animosity towards me. So I am determined to give a good lesson to all these princes. Just as one extracts and uses fire after manipulating ordinary wood, after dealing with these demoniac princes, I shall bring forth Rukmini like fire from their midst." Krishna, upon being informed of the specific date of Rukmini's marriage, was anxious to leave immediately. He asked his driver Daruk to harness the horses for his chariot and prepare to go to the kingdom of Vidarbha. After hearing this order, the driver brought Krishna's 4 special horses. The names and descriptions of these horses are mentioned in Padma Puran. The first one, Sabya, was greenish. The second one, Sugriv, was greyish like ice. The third, Megha Pushpa, was the color of a new cloud, and the last, Balahak, was of ashen color. When the horses were yoked and chariot was ready to go, Krishna helped the Brahmana up and gave him a seat by his side. Immediately they started from Dwarka and within one night arrived at the province of Vidarbha. The kingdom of Dwarka is situated in the western part of India, and Vidarbha is situated in the northern part. They are separated by the distance of not less than 1000 miles, but the horses were so fast that they reached their destination, a town called Kundina, within one night or at most 12 hours. King Bhishmaka was not enthusiastic about handing his daughter over to Shishupal, but he was obliged to accept the marriage settlement due to his affectionate attachment of his eldest son, who had negotiated it. As a matter of duty, the king was decorating the city for the marriage ceremony, and in great earnestness to make it very successful, water was sprinkled all over the streets and the city was cleansed very nicely. Since India is situated in the tropical zone, the atmosphere is always dry. Dust always accumulates on the streets and roads, so they must be sprinkled with water at least once a day, and in big cities like Calcutta, twice a day. The roads of Kundina were arranged with colored flags and festoons, and gates were constructed at particular crossings. The whole city was decorated very nicely. The beauty of the city was enhanced by the inhabitants, both men and women, who were dressed in fresh washed clothes and decorated with sandalwood pearl necklaces and flower garlands. Incense burned everywhere and fragrances like aguru scented the air. Priests and brahmanas were sumptuously fed and according to ritualistic ceremony were given sufficient wealth and cows in charity. In this way they were engaged in chanting Vedic hymns. The king's daughter Rukmini was exquisitely beautiful. She was very clean and beautiful, had beautiful teeth, and the auspicious sacred thread was tied on her wrist. She was given various types of jewelry to wear and long silken cloth to cover the upper and lower parts of her body. Learned priests gave her protection by chanting mantras from the Samaveda, Rig Veda, and Yajurveda. Then they chanted mantras from the Atharvaveda and offered oblations in the fire to pacify the influence of different stars. King Bhishmaka was experienced in dealing with brahmanas and priests. When such ceremonies were held, he specifically honored the brahmanas by giving them large quantities of gold and silver, grain mixed with molasses, and cows decorated with cloth and ornament. Dam Ghosh, Shishupal's father, executed all kinds of ritualistic performances to invoke good fortune for his son. Shishupal's father was known as Dam Ghosh due to his superior ability to cut down the unregulated citizens. Dam means curbing down, and Ghosh means famous. So he was famous for controlling the citizens. Dam Ghosh thought that if Krishna came to disturb the marriage ceremony, he would certainly cut him down with his military power. Therefore, after performing the various auspicious ceremonies, Dam Ghosh gathered his military divisions. He took many elephants garlanded with golden necklaces and many similar decorated chariots and horses. It appeared that Dam Ghosh, along with his son and other companions, was going to Kundin not exactly to get Shishupal married, but mainly to fight. When King Bhishmaka learned that Dam Ghosh and his party were arriving, he left the city to receive them. Outside the city gate were many gardens where guests were welcome to stay. In the Vedic system of marriage, the bride's father receives the large party of the bridegroom and accommodates them in a suitable place for 2 or 3 days until the marriage is performed. The party led by Dam Ghosh contained thousands of men, among whom the prominent kings and personalities were Jarasandha, Dantavakra, Viduratha, and Pondaraka. It was an open secret that Rukmini was meant to be married to Krishna, but that her elder brother Rukmi had arranged her marriage to Shishupal. There was also some whispering about the rumor that Rukmini had sent a messenger to Krishna. Therefore, the soldiers were suspected that Krishna might cause a disturbance by attempting to kidnap Rukmini. Even though they were not, uh, sorry, even they were, though they were not without fear, they were all prepared to give Krishna a good fight. To prevent the girl from being taken away, Sri Balram received the news that Krishna had left Kundina accompanied only by a Brahman, and the Shishupal was there with a large number of soldiers. Balram suspected that they would attack Krishna, and thus, out of great affection for his brother, he took strong military division of chariots, infantry, horses, and elephants and went to the precincts of Kundina. Meanwhile, inside the palace, Rukmini was expecting Krishna to arrive, but when neither he or the Brahmana took her message appeared, she was full of anxiety and began to think how unfortunate she was. There is only one night between today and my marriage, and still neither the Brahmana nor Shamsundar has returned. I cannot ascertain any reason for this. Having little hope, she thought that perhaps Krishna had found reason to become dissatisfied, had rejected her proposal. As a result, the Brahmana might have become disappointed and not come back. Although she was thinking of various causes for the delay, she expected them both at any moment. Demigods such as Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and Goddess Durga might have been displeased. It is generally said that demigods become angry when not properly worshipped. For instance, when Indra found that the inhabitants of Vrindavan were not worshipping him, Krishna having stopped the Indra Yagya, he became angry and wanted to chastise them. Thus Rukmini thought that since she did not worship Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma very much, they might have become angry and tried to frustrate her plan. Similarly, she thought that Goddess Durga, the wife of Lord Shiva, might have taken the side of her husband. Lord Shiva is known as Rudra and his wife is known as Rudrani. Rudrani and Rudra refer to those who are accustomed to putting others to distress to cry forever. Rukmini was thinking of Goddess Durga as Girija, the daughter of Himalaya mountains. The Himalayan mountains are very cold and hard, and she thought of Goddess Durga as hard-hearted and cold. In her anxiety to see Krishna, Rukmini, who was after all still a child, thought the way about other different demigods. The gopis worshipped goddess Katyayani to get Krishna as their husband. Similarly, Rukmini was thinking of the various types of demigods, not for material benefit but in respect to Krishna. Praying to the demigods to achieve the favor of Krishna is not irregular, and Rukmini also was fully absorbed in thoughts of Krishna. Even though she pacified herself by thinking that the time for Govinda to arrive had not expired, Rukmini felt that she was hoping against the hope. Not expressing her mind to anyone, she simply shed tears unobserved by others, and when her tears became more forceful, she closed her eyes in helplessness. While Rukmini was in such deep thought, auspicious symptoms appeared in different parts of her body. Trembling began to occur in her left eyelid, arm, and thigh. When trembling occurs in these parts of body, it is an auspicious sign indicating that something lucrative can be expected. Just then, Rukmini, full of anxiety, saw the Brahmana messenger. Krishna, being the super soul of all living beings, could understand Rukmini's anxiety. Therefore, he sent the Brahman inside the palace to let her know that he had arrived. When Rukmini saw the Brahman, she could understand the auspicious trembling of her body and immediately became elated. She smiled and inquired whether Krishna had already come. The Brahmana replied that the son of the Yadu dynasty, Sri Krishna, had arrived. He further encouraged her by saying that Krishna had promised to carry her away without fail. Rukmini was so elated by Brahmana's message that she wanted to give him charity, everything she possessed. In charity, everything she possessed. However, finding nothing suitable for presentation, she simply offered him her respectful obeisances. The significance of offering respectful obeisances to a superior person is that one offering obeisances is obliged to the respected person. In other words, Rukmini implied that she would remain ever grateful to the Brahmana. Anyone who gets the favor of the goddess of fortune, as did this Brahman, is without a doubt always happy in material opulence. When King Bhishmaka heard that Krishna and Balram had come, he invited them to see the marriage ceremony of their daughter. Immediately he arranged to receive them along with their soldiers in a suitable garden house, as was their Vedic custom. The king offered Krishna and Balram honey and fresh clothes, washed clothes. He was hospitable not only to Krishna and Balram and kings such as Jarasan, but also to many kings and princes according to their personal strength, age, and material possession. Out of curiosity and eagerness, the people of Kundina assembled before Krishna and Balram to drink the nectar of their beauty. With tearful eyes, they offered Krishna and Balram their silent respects. They were very pleased, considering Krishna the suitable match for Rukmini. They were also eager to unite Krishna and Rukmini, and that they prayed to the personality of Godhead, our Lord, if we have performed any pious activities with which you are satisfied, kindly be merciful upon us and accept the hand of Rukmini. It appears that Rukmini was a very popular princess, and all the citizens, out of intense love for her, prayed for her best fortune. In the meantime, Rukmini, being very nicely dressed and protected by bodyguards, came out of the palace to visit the temple of Ambika, goddess Durga. Deity worship in the temple has been in existence since the beginning of Vedic culture. There is a class of men described in the Bhagavad Gita as Vedavata Rata. They believe only in the Vedic ritualistic worship. Such foolish people may have taken note that although the marriage of Krishna and Rukmini took place more than 5,000 years ago, there were arrangements for temple worship. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Yanti Deva Vrata Devan. The worshippers of the demigods attain the abodes of demigods. There were many people who worship the demigods and many who directly worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The system of demigod worship was directed mainly to Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Lord Ganesha, the sun god, and goddess Durga. Lord Shiva and goddess Durga were worshipped even by the royal families. Other minor demigods were worshipped by silly lower class people. As far as the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas are concerned, they simply worship Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Bhagavad Gita, the worship of demigods is condemned but not forbidden. Therefore, it is clearly stated that less intelligent men worship the demigods for material benefit. On the other hand, even though Rukmini was the goddess of fortune, she went to the temple of goddess Durga because the family deity was worshipped there. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that Rukmini proceeded towards the temple of goddess Durga. Within her heart, she always thought of the lotus feet of Krishna. Therefore, when Rukmini went to the temple, it was not with the intention of an ordinary person who goes to beg for material benefits. Her goal was Krishna. As Rukmini proceeded toward the temple, she was silent and grave. Her mother and her girlfriends were by her side, and the wife of a Brahmana was in the center, surrounding her with the royal bodyguards. As the procession continued, various musical sounds were heard: panavas and other drums, conch shells, the bugles of different sizes, such as turias and bheris, combined to make a sound which was not only auspicious but very sweet to hear. Thousands of wives of respectable Brahmanas were present, all dressed up nicely with suitable ornaments. They presented Rukmini with flower garlands, sandalwood pulp, and a variety of colorful garments to assist her in worshipping Lord Shiva and goddess Durga. Some of these ladies were very old and knew perfectly well how to chant prayers to goddess Durga and Lord Shiva. So, followed by Rukmini and others, they led these prayers before the Rukmini offered their prayers to the deity by saying, My dear goddess Durga, as well as your children. Goddess Durga has 4 famous children, 2 daughters, the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, and the goddess of learning, Saraswati, and 2 famous sons, Lord Ganesha and Lord Kartikeya. They were all considered to be demigods and goddesses. Since goddess Durga is always worshipped by her famous children, Rukmini specifically offered her respectful obeisances to the deity in that way. However, her prayers were special. Ordinary people pray to goddess Durga for material wealth, fame, profit, strength, and so on. Rukmini, however, desired to have Krishna for her husband and therefore prayed that the deity be pleased with her and bless her with that benediction. Since she desired only Krishna, her worship of the demigods is not condemned. When Rukmini was praying, she presented a variety of items before the deity, chief of which were water, different kinds of flames, incense, garments, garlands, and various foods prepared with ghee, such as puris and kachoris. She also offered fruits, sugarcane, betel nuts, and spices. With great devotion, Rukmini offered them to the deity according to the regulative principles directed by the old Brahman ladies. After this ritualistic ceremony, the ladies offered the remnants of the food to Rukmini as prasadam, which she accepted with great respect. Then Rukmini offered her obeisances to the ladies and goddess Durga. After the business of deity worship was finished, Rukmini caught hold of the hand of one of her girlfriends in her own hand, which was decorated with a jeweled ring, and left the temple in the company of others. All the princes and visitors who came to visit Kundina for the marriage had assembled outside the temple to see Rukmini. The princes were especially eager to see her because they all actually thought that they would have Rukmini as their wife. Struck with such wonder upon seeing Rukmini, they thought that she was especially manufactured by the Creator to bewilder all the chivalrous princes. Her body was well constructed and her beauty was enhanced by her nice hair and all kinds of jewelry. The bodily luster and beauty of Rukmini appeared as if she was painted by an artist, perfectly presenting beauty following the descriptions of great poets. Her beauty was specifically intended to attract the attention of Krishna. Although the princess gazed upon her beautiful features, she was not at all proud. Her eyes moved restlessly, and when she smiled very simply, like an innocent girl, her teeth appeared just like jasmine buds. Expecting Krishna to take her away at any moment, she proceeded slowly toward her home. Her legs moved just like a full-grown swan, and her ankle bells tinkled mildly. The chivalrous princes assembled there, so overwhelmed by Rukmini's beauty that they almost became unconscious and fell from their horses and elephants. Full of lust, they hopelessly desired Rukmini's hand. Srimati Rukmini, however, was not interested in any of them. Her heart was simply expecting Krishna to come and carry her away. As she was adjusting the ornaments on the finger of her left hand, she happened to look upon the princes and suddenly saw that Krishna was present among them. Although Rukmini had never before seen Krishna, she was always thinking of him. Thus she had no difficulty recognizing him amongst the princely order. Krishna, unconcerned with other princesses, immediately took the opportunity to place Rukmini on his chariot, marked by a flag bearing the name of Garuda. He then proceeded slowly without fear, taking Rukmini always exactly as a lion takes a deer from the midst of jackals. Meanwhile, Balram appeared on the scene with the soldiers of the Yadu dynasty. Jarasandha, who had many times experienced defeat by Krishna's, roared, "How is this? Krishna is taking Rukmini away from us without opposition. How is the use of our being chivalrous fighters with arrows? My dear princess, just look, we are losing our reputation. He is just like a jackal taking booty from a lion." Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 53rd chapter of Krishna. Krishna kidnaps Rukmini. So Krishna has taken away Rukmini from the Kundina province, her home, because she had desired only Krishna as her husband, and the inhabitants of the province Kundina, Rukmini's father's province, they all wanted the same. They wanted Rukmini to be the wife of Krishna, and they knew this very well, and Krishna had to take Rukmini, as it was told in the chapter, because her brother Rukmi had arranged this arrangement of her getting married to her not getting married, fix her marriage with Shishupal because of the animosity with Krishna. So this was another reason Krishna had to take away Rukmini to teach the lessons to the princes there who were assembled for the Swayamvar ceremony. So I will continue this reading tomorrow. We've got 2 more chapters left, and hopefully we will finish them before the Janmashtami. Hope you all have a lovely day ahead. Hare Krishna. See you all tomorrow.